Namaste nerds, this is Navina, the Budget Pub Stomper, and today I'm bringing you something totally unusual. This is the Wandering Minstrel built as a $100 budget competitive deck, but this is not what you would normally think of when you think of the Wandering Minstrel. But this is exactly the deck that has really been living, well, this concept has been living rent-free in my mind since the day that I saw this guy spoiled. I've been thinking about, and I just had to build it. Eventually it was going to be built, and this is what happened. So I saw the Wandering Minstrel, and I thought, now wait a second. That would allow us to play at a $100 budget a 5-color mana base that doesn't cost a fortune, right? Because all of our lands coming into play tapped would allow us to play gates as dual lands. If we can play gates as dual lands, we can play 5 colors. But there's more to it than that, because it also means that we get to play a 5-color identity deck, but because the Wandering Minstrel itself is only 2 CMC, it allows us to play Lurrus of the Dream Den as our companion in our 5-color deck. And so that was the big idea, is I wanted to build a 5-color, not 5-color, it's actually more like a 4-color deck. I'll get to that in a moment, but it's like 5-color Lurrus. We're playing 5-color Lurrus, but it's more like 4-color Lurrus. It is the Wandering Minstrel, but the Wandering Minstrel, and we are going to be playing the Wandering Minstrel usually on curve to allow all of our other lands to come into play untapped, but we're going to have more uses than that for the Wandering Minstrel. The big use is going to be in our main line. This is a Hermit Druid deck. This deck defies explanation. This is the third take I've done trying to even start to explain this deck. I think we're going to roll with however this is coming out, though. So the Wandering Minstrel, being a 2 CMC commander, allows us to play Lurrus. Being 5-color identities allows us to have our full suite of all of the best control magic, all of the best counterspells and interaction and tutors that the format has to offer. And if we're willing to give up on just a couple of those key cards, like Swords to Plowshares is the big one that we're missing, then it also allows us to have kind of a bonus Hermit Druid in Sacred Guide. Okay, so we're playing 5-color Lurrus, but it's really a Hermit Druid deck. But Hermit Druid has a couple of stand-ins for it. We can use Cephalid Illusionist, we can use Divining Witch. Divining Witch is probably the closest replica. It's probably our Hermit Druid 2.0. But then we also have Sacred Guide, which has a lot of benefits of its own in the sense of if you have Thassa's Oracle in your hand and you have like any kind of a creature tutor, this is going to be the one you're going to go for most of the time, because Sacred Guide, we don't have to worry about summoning sickness with Sacred Guide. So we are playing 5-color Lurrus, but we are not playing white, but we kind of are playing white because we've got Lurrus in the companion zone and we've got a Sacred Guide that's a pretty big part of our game plan. We got to save a bunch of money by playing the Wandering Minstrel, allowing us to play a bunch of tap lands, like probably half of the lands in the deck come into play tapped. Still $11.51, but it's a really good mana base, and it's a 4-color, 5-color deck. So $11 is not that bad. So with all that budget we saved, we got to play Hermit Druid, which is actually down to $5.61, but it only works if you don't play basic lands in your deck. Well, what else works when we don't play basic lands in our deck? Tainted Pact. So with all this money we're saving, being able to play an effective 5-color mana base, it's going to kind of automatically allow us to play Tainted Pact, and it's a $10 card, but now we can afford to play Tainted Pact, and we can afford to play Thassa's Oracle, which we do need to play. We can't use Laboratory Maniac because we're playing Lurrus. So are you seeing the through line? If you're not familiar, I think probably the fastest way to get you on board for what the deck is trying to do is to explain Hermit Druid. So Hermit Druid is a 2-mana human druid. It's a green and a colorless 1/1 with the ability pay a green and tap, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a basic land card. Put that card into your hand, and all the other cards revealed this way into your graveyard. So what that does is it doesn't just deck you out, but it flips your entire deck into your graveyard. Let's see how we're doing on time. Good. And that's really the key strategy here. That's the thing the deck is trying to do, is to get Hermit Druid into play with 1 green mana and with our Hermit Druid not being summoning sick. Then we will activate the Hermit Druid, and since we don't have any basic lands in our deck, we're going to reveal all of the cards off of the top of our library, and we're going to put them all into our graveyard. Once we have all of our cards in the graveyard, including Thassa's Oracle and Dread Return, then as long as we have the Hermit Druid, so Dread Return, if you're not familiar, is it's a reanimate card that you can flash back without paying any mana. That's the big thing. It says return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Flashback, sacrifice 3 creatures. So if you have a mana dork, and we're chock full of them, and you have your Hermit Druid, which you must have if you've activated Hermit Druid, and you've got your commander, that's 3 creatures. So that's all you need to flash back any creature card that's in your library or graveyard, which now contains every card that was in your library, including, drumroll, Thassa's Oracle. So that's how we're going to try to win. We're going to try to win by getting a Hermit Druid into play, and we're going to activate it, and we're going to deck ourselves, but we're going to have no cards in our library, and we're going to flash back the Thassa's Oracle by sacrificing our commander, and sacrificing the Druid, and sacrificing any other creature. Now there will be times when you either didn't have a chance or bother to cast your commander, or you didn't have a mana dork. Well, what do we do in those cases? I've gotcha. Narcomoeba. So while you're flipping all of your cards from your library into your graveyard, you will necessarily be flipping past Narcomoeba. Narcomoeba is a 1/1 flyer for 2 that says when Narcomoeba is put into your graveyard from your library, put it onto the battlefield. So that's your 3rd creature if you don't have a dork or if you don't have your commander. So as long as you have Hermit Druid and, well, Hermit Druid and any other creature. So Hermit Druid and a dork or Hermit Druid and your commander, you will flip the Narcomoeba into play, essentially. So that's how we're going to win most of the time. Now, one of the key cards that I think of when I think of Hermit Druid decks is Lightning Greaves. Lightning Greaves is going to... the big problem when you're playing Hermit Druid is it's very squishy. It's a 1/1 creature. Any removal spell in the game will kill it. It has no sort of shroud or anything. It just dies to removal. This is like the ultimate dies to Doomblade card, right? And we're basing so much of our strategy on it that having Lightning Greaves is a huge boon. So if we cast our Lightning Greaves ahead of the Hermit Druid, then it really narrows the window of interaction for your opponent. So now, if we have our Lightning Greaves, we can attach the Hermit Druid to it, and immediately we can just do the thing. Well, that also opens us up to having a backup Hermit Druid in the form of Cephalid Illusionist. So, because in the same sense, if you have Lightning Greaves and Cephalid Illusionist with any other creature, Cephalid Illusionist says whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability, you can put the top, well, you do put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. So if you have like a dork and you've got your Cephalid Illusionist with your Lightning Greaves, you move the Lightning Greaves from the Cephalid Illusionist onto the dork, and then from the dork onto the Illusionist, back and forth, and you do the exact same thing that Hermit Druid does. So if we're going to use Hermit Druid, and we're going to use Lightning Greaves, which they do go well together, then we also probably want to use Cephalid Illusionist. And if we're going to use those two, then we might as well throw in our Hermit Druid 2.0, Divining Witch. So this is what we're doing with the deck. Divining Witch is 2 mana, and then it's got this text on it that's kind of similar to the Hermit Druid, but instead of paying 1 green, you pay a black and a colorless, and then you discard a card from your hand, and you do a demonic consultation. It literally is that. I'll read it, but it's 2 mana tap, discard a card, name a card, remove the top 6 cards of your library from the game, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal the named card, put that card into your hand, remove all other cards revealed this way from the game. So if you have Thassa's Oracle in hand, Divining Witch is going to be your demonic consultation. If you have Lightning Greaves, then you can do that immediately. And you don't have to worry about somebody just burning your Divining Witch. But there is a little bit more to Divining Witch than this that makes Divining Witch kind of the best secondary version of Hermit Druid for us in the deck, mostly, is that you can, for instance, end step, activate Divining Witch, naming Thassa's Oracle. So even if you don't have the Thassa's Oracle in hand, you can find the Thassa's Oracle with the Divining Witch. Then when you go to your turn, you untap the Divining Witch, and now you cast your Thassa's Oracle, and then you activate the Divining Witch in response, and you deck yourself with the Thoracle on the stack. So it's a backup Illusionist or a backup Hermit Druid, and there's actually at least one more that we should talk about, and that is Sacred Guide. Sacred Guide does not have the same problem that we have with Hermit Druid and Divining Witch. Namely, it doesn't have the problem of having to be off of Summoning Sickness. Sacred Guide is 1 white, 2 mana, sacrifice the Sacred Guide, and exile your entire deck. So if you have Thassa's Oracle in hand, this is kind of your best one. There's a catch, though. The catch is in our 5... So let me read the card. 1 white for a 1/1. It's a Sacred Guide. Summon Cleric. I think it's probably a human. Who knows? Check the Oracle text. Not relevant here. Sacred Guide for 1 white mana. You get a 1/1 that has 2 mana, a white, and a colorless. Sacrifice Sacred Guide. Reveal cards from your library until you reveal a white card. Put that card into your hand. Remove all other revealed cards from the game. But if there are no other white cards in your deck, then we're kind of doing the Hermit Druid thing. So we're Hermit Druid. We just don't play any basics, and it allows us to deck out the Sacred Guide. As long as we don't play any other white cards, with 1 activation we will deck out. So this should be reminiscent of another card. At least the Hermit Druid should be very reminiscent of another card in the format, and especially in full power cEdh, which is often paired with Thassa's Oracle, and that is Tainted Pact, which also makes a guest appearance in our deck. It's very rare that you get to play Tainted Pact because it's fairly expensive, but it's not the end of the world expensive. But the problem with playing Tainted Pact is you have to play a Tainted Pact mana base, and that means no duplicate lands. Well, how would you do that in a budget deck? You know, you'd have to have all these untapped dual lands. The mana base would either be too expensive, or you'd end up playing a bunch of lands that ETB tapped, which is just no way to compete. You're gonna fall far behind what all of your opponents are doing, and you're just never gonna be able to compete that way. But in this deck, since we're already playing all non-basic lands, they will necessarily none of them be duplicates. Tainted Pact says 2 mana, instant. Exile the top card of your library and put that into your hand unless it has the same name as another card exiled this way. You can repeat this process as many times as you want until you hit 2 cards that have the same name. So as long as you don't have any 2 cards that have the same name, this is an instant speed tutor where you can just keep flipping cards until you find the thing you want, put that into your hand, and or it's a way to exile your entire library for 2 mana. Which is what we're really playing it for in the deck. But sometimes you will just tutor with Tainted Pact. It's a perfectly, not just a serviceable card, but it might, if you build around it, be like the best tutor that you have access to on a budget, depending on the deck, of course. So that's kind of the thing that we're trying to do, and that's kind of the way we're trying to do it. But there's some other, I would say, like, not just interesting synergies, but layers that just work so well that I couldn't shake them as an idea in my brain, and they had to become manifest in this deck, which I'm really hoping is going to get more than tens of views, but I think that all the people that tune in for a Wandering Minstrel deck tech are going to be disappointed and go away. So don't go away. Keep watching. There's more. Where was I? The other tricks that we're going to use, so we're playing the Lightning Greaves as a foil or a workaround to the fact that our guys mainly have Summoning Sickness, and we need for them to not have Summoning Sickness to use them to win the game. But we also have Lava Spur Boots at basically the same cost. It costs 1 mana to play them, and it's 1 mana to equip. And when you do, the creature that you equip the boots to gets haste primarily, but also it has Ward 1, which is, that's not nothing either. In fact, that can be quite a lot. In fact, that can be often the difference between anybody being able to interact with the nonsense you're trying to do or not. And there is another, I would say, my second favorite card in the deck. There's Aether Vial. This is in goldfishing. first of all, I want to say in goldfishing, this deck has far surpassed my expectations. This was one that I had in my mind, but I was really skeptical as to whether I was going to be able to get it to work, how well it could work. The deck works, guys. It really does, and I'm going to show you that soon. But Aether Vial is just a standout all-star. If you haven't looked at this card, look at this card. If you have a deck that has like key 1 mana and 2 mana creatures in it, you really maybe should just jam this. It does so much. So it says at the beginning of upkeep, you can put a charge counter on it, or not. You don't have to. You may put. And it has tap. You may put a creature card with a mana value equal to the number of charge counters on Aether Vial from your hand onto the battlefield. So if you have 1 charge counter on it, which you should the turn after you play it, you can tap it to put a 1 mana creature into play. So that should start to look like ramp. It's like a mana acceleration piece. You're going to be, let's just say you keep one counter on Aether Vial, then every turn you're going to be able to cheat a 1 mana creature into play. So it allows you just to stick dorks. But it does another really, really important thing, in that it allows you to break timing restrictions. And so when we go to 2 counters on Aether Vial, which will normally be like the key number in this deck, that's usually where we're going to stop with it, that will allow us to end stop, cheat Hermit Druid into play before we untap for our turn, which is going to not only get around Summoning Sickness, but also it's going to limit its exposure. So it's kind of the same thing as the Lightning Greaves, but it's got one other huge benefit, which is you can't counterspell that, right? We're not casting the Hermit Druid. So if we put our second counter on the Aether Vial, and we have either our Hermit Druid or our Divining Witch in hand, then on our on the last end step before our untap, before our turn starts, we can tap the Aether Vial to put in at instant speed, can flash in Divining Witch, or we can flash in Hermit Druid. Or if it's got 1 counter, you can flash in Sacred Guide. And that isn't a useless thing, even if it's Sacred Guide, because we're not just trying to get around Summoning Sickness, but we also, this way, don't have to worry about a counter spell, and we've been able to limit kind of our exposure, because now we're going to get to untap with all of our mana, and we can kind of, basically we get to flash the creature in. So flashing the creature in at your opponent's end step before your turn, it's almost like you get to play it without Summoning Sickness, but in the case of, it is like that, and you don't have to worry about the removal that you'd have to fade if you had given away the fact that you actually do have the card, and then pass the turn and hope that all 3 of your opponents would just pass, would ignore your whatever it is game-ending threat. So we're going to use the Aether Vial as a stand-in for Lightning Greaves, yes, but it also does kind of the, it makes it uncounterable. So your opponents can't counterspell, it limits its exposure, it limits the amount of information you give your opponents, it breaks the timing restrictions, it allows you to go the very next second. I don't feel like I'm explaining that well. I think maybe I've gotten the vibe across, but the vibe is like, it allows you to start the game on your turn. It allows you to start your turn with your Hermit Druid in play, but with all of your mana untapped, and without having to have risked exposing your game-ending threat to 3 of your opponent's turns. So it's like this haste enabling ritual is the way it feels, because you get to drop the thing into play, and now you're fully untapped, so you have all of your mana up to use all of your interaction, and you've got all the best interaction in the format for a budget, or all the best budget interaction. So it allows you to untap and use all of your interaction to not just stick your Hermit Druid, but actually just win the game, or stick your Divining Witch, but actually win the game. So that's kind of what the deck is doing. But the really one of the best things, and it's going to be hard to get this across, I think, outside of goldfishing, how important this is. It seems like Lurrus of the Dream Den is too expensive. Like, who would play this as their partner commander if it were 6 mana? But it's not like that. Like, it does a lot in the deck. But when you're playing this kind of stick a Hermit Druid win the game strategy, the main thing you're worried about is playing it naked and having it get removed before it can do anything. But in those situations, which are going to come up, your Hermit Druid doesn't just usually get evaporated, it goes to the graveyard. And then your Lurrus will allow you to recast the Hermit Druid. And it won't just allow you to recast the Hermit Druid this turn, but it's going to allow you to recast the Hermit Druid every turn. So that's like as resilient as it can get. You could say, well, they can just kill Lurrus, sure, right? But that's kind of amazing on its own right. What if you just had a commander partner that said your opponents can't do anything to any of your stuff? It's pretty good, right? I mean, for not even taking up for just taking up a card in your quote sideboard, it's like legendary. I don't have to sell you guys on Lurrus. You all know how good Lurrus is, but maybe I need to sell you on how good Lurrus is in this deck. And if you build around it a little bit, which we really couldn't help but do if we were going to play Cephalid Illusionist, Hermit Druid, Thassa's Oracle, Divining Witch, and Sacred Guide all in the same deck, right? Like these are one-card combos, like in the case of Hermit Druid especially, but Divining Witch can be. And the rest of these end up forming like layered A plus B combos. They kind of feel like one-card combos, and you're playing Thassa's Oracle. If you have all these cards in your deck, the ability to regurgitate them from the graveyard is it's massive. And oftentimes, if your Lurrus gets murdered and you've got a reanimate spell, because we've got a couple of backups, you will just use the backup to get your Lurrus back in play. And also, if we are eschewing any kind of card advantage in the command zone, a little bit of a build around with Lurrus allows you to use Lurrus as a mid to late game grind engine. And I did do that. Like, we're usually, I think, going to be using the Lurrus to recast our actual I win the game cards. Like, how many times can your opponents remove your Hermit Druid? But sometimes we're just going to be using the Lurrus with Aether Spellbomb, Nihil Spellbomb, or Mishra's Bauble. And possibly some of the time it could come up that we're using it to recast Wishclaw Talisman, but more likely Lightning Greaves. Or either. So imagine you've got Lurrus and you've got Lightning Greaves on your Lurrus, which makes a lot of sense, and then you're recasting your Mishra's Bauble and getting 2 card draws a turn where everybody else is just drawing 1 card a turn. Then they have to get rid of your Greaves if they want to get rid of your Lurrus. And they may not do that, which really I think they should do, and you would like it if they didn't. But even if they do, when they remove the Lightning Greaves, as soon as it's your turn, you can just recast the Lightning Greaves with your Lurrus. So it kind of it's like having a flag bearer type effect with Lightning Greaves that can cast your Lightning Greaves even if the Lightning Greaves get removed. You feel that? Like it's big. It's pretty big. Now it is only 1 extra card per turn, but there's other uses, like, well, obviously recasting your game-ending 1-card combos. But also, it makes good, there's not a ton else it does. It's regurgitating your stuff, but one of the cool things you can do with it is if you have your Fauna Shaman. One of the problems with Fauna Shaman, one of the things that stops this from being like S tier, I mean, I think it's A tier in budget, like it's a very, very good budget card. If you have creature combos or like 1-card creature combos, you should probably play Fauna Shaman if you've got green color identity. So obviously we want to use Fauna Shaman to find our Hermit Druid most of the time, but sometimes the problem is when you find your Fauna Shaman, you don't have a creature card in your hand. And that's another big place where Lurrus can come into play. So if you have your Fauna Shaman, but you don't have a creature to discard to its ability, but you do have your companion in the companion zone, you can pay the 3 mana to put the Lurrus in your hand, and then you can discard the Lurrus to the Fauna Shaman to find your Hermit Druid. Or your Divining... Well, you'll probably find your Hermit Druid. If you get to tutor, it's usually going to be Hermit Druid, but not always. Sometimes it'll be Sacred Guide. When would that be? Well, if you have Thassa's Oracle in your hand, it'll definitely be Sacred Guide. So you've got like really condensed, mana-efficient, 1 card and 2 card win conditions in the deck, but they've always had restrictions and catches to these specific 1 card win cons, like, well, Divining Witch or Hermit Druid. So yes, Divining Witch, I can instep, find the Thoracle, go to my turn, untap, win, right? But it's squishy. It's even if you just give people that little bit of space, even if I do just drop this in on instep, or I drop this in on instep with the Aether Vial, still if somebody has like an instant speed removal piece, you still do get your guy killed. And no one's going to see the Hermit Druid and just think like, oh, that's not that big a deal. He probably doesn't have it. This is having it. If you have the Hermit Druid, that's it. You don't need anything else. You need 1 green mana and a creature in play other than Hermit Druid, and that's it. You're there. So that's big, right? Like having a very easily accessible, easily tutored, mana efficient card that is a 1 card win condition. That's crazy. But the downside is it's got Summoning Sickness, and the other downside is it's only a 1/1. So if you think of it like that, like this would be the most broken effect in the game if it weren't so easy to kill, and if it didn't have Summoning Sickness. And then you look at what we're doing with the rest of the deck. We're sticking Lurrus in the companion zone. We're playing not 1, not 2, but 3, I'd say like quasi, well, either haste enabling or quasi haste enabling, either hexproofing or quasi hexproofing cards that are not only that, but they're also regurgitatable by the very companion that we're playing to tie the strategy together in the first place. Oh, right, and it combos with Cephalid Illusionist. So hopefully you're understanding. It's not a little bit complicated. I'm going to go on record now that I've got the true believers in, and we know that the riffraff has already scrammed. I'm going to let you in on a secret. You may be able to tell from my voice. This is not the first take. This has not been the second take. It wasn't actually the third take. I think I might have indicated that it was something like the third take. I tried to start this deck tech off like 5 or 6 times. I could not think of a way to explain it. Like, what are we going to say? This is our 5-color, 4-color Wandering Minstrel deck tech that isn't a Wandering Minstrel deck. It's actually a Lurrus deck, but we're not really first and foremost here about Lurrus. Lurrus is just the backup plan, but it's not actually just a backup plan. It's actually the same plan, but it's going to bring the same plan to bear even after they've disabled the all of the good things that make our good thing a good thing with all of the bad things. You know, it gets really, well, it's hard as hell to explain. But I hope I did a reasonable job. I think you're just going to have to see it in Goldfishing. But let me hit the finer points again. Oh, some things that we probably should talk about. Unearth is key in the deck. It's another, like, yeah, somebody murders our Lurrus, we unearth it. Or somebody murders our Druid and we don't have the Lurrus in play yet, unearth. Or we have, in that same kind of vein, we've got Dread Return, we've got Lively Dirge. We've got Lively Dirge is, yes, a recursion piece, and you'll use it like that in this deck more than you will most other decks. Most of the times, if you're playing Lively Dirge, I've found that almost always you're playing it for the other 2 modes. You're either using it as a way to tutor a piece into your graveyard, or you're using it as a basically to the battlefield tutor, and we definitely do that with this deck. With this deck, we can pay the 2 mana for the Lively Dirge, and then you've got 1 colorless spree cost that you can add to the cast cost of the Lively Dirge to search your library for a card and put it in your graveyard. But then you have this other spree ability that you can tack onto the cast cost, 2. So in total then, if you get the Lively Dirge's cast cost of 2, and then you add the first spree cost and the second spree cost, the grand total is 5 mana. But the net effect, I didn't read the bottom effect yet, is we're going to search your library for a card, put it in your graveyard, and then return up to 2 creature cards with total mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So most of the time, yeah, you're going to be using this to find your fill in the blank. It's often going to be, it's most often going to be Hermit Druid. That's primarily what we're trying to do. We built around Hermit Druid the most, but in cases where you've got Thassa's Oracle in hand, it's definitely not going to be Hermit Druid. I mean, it still could. You still could use that, but the better option at that point is probably going to be Sacred Guide. So you can lively dirge the Sacred Guide from your library directly into play. So that's usually how people use this card in their decks, is they use it as an entomb and or a to the battlefield tutor for important creatures. And we are doing that, but we're actually going to be using just the bottom spree ability an awful lot. So for a total of 4 mana, you can return up to 2 creature cards with total mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And that might look something like Divining Witch and Hermit Druid. It might look something like Sacred Guide and Lurrus, right? So the ability for it to regurgitate our threats, because remember, the threats are totally overpowered and unfair, except that they're super squishy and easy to kill. So having these ways to regurgitate them very efficiently is paramount. Another sick thing about having access to Thassa's Oracle in this deck is we want to play all of these mana dorks. We've got our all the good ones. We've got Avacyn's Pilgrim, Ignoble Hierarch. We've got the Elves of Deep Shadow, the good ones. But we've got the bad ones too, or the mediocre ones. Wild Cantor, you can cast this for either red or green, which is a big win. But also it sacrifices for 1 mana of any color. You can't take this card out of the deck. It looks like the worst card in the deck. It doesn't perform that way. And you can tap this and sacrifice it in the same turn, and that does come up. Like you might, for instance, I don't know, let's just say you have a Springleaf Drum. You can tap the Springleaf Drum and the Wild Cantor to make a mana, then sacrifice the Wild Cantor to make another mana of any color. So that's 2 mana of any color, for instance, blue. So the kind of lost my I lost my train there. Time, how we doing? What was I talking? Oh, having access to all of these 1 mana dorks, and having Thassa's Oracle instead of Labman, which Laboratory Maniac is our like 90% plus 95% of the time if you're playing some version of this combo at a $100 level, you're playing Laboratory Maniac. But in this deck, we're playing Thassa's Oracle, which means we can neoform any of our dorks directly into Thassa's Oracle. So now all of our dorks, if we have a, say, Sacred Guide and a Wild Cantor in play, and we have a Neoform or Eldritch Evolution in our hand, either one of them, we can win the game on the spot. We Neoform the dork into the Thassa's Oracle, and we Sacred Guide and exile our library and win the game that way. So we sacrifice Sacred Guide, by the way. We do not exile the Sacred Guide. So if, I don't know, say you get stifled or some such shenanigans, or you get your Sacred Guide down but you don't have time to activate it, but even if you do sacrifice it and it gets stifled, it does go to your graveyard, which if it can't be in the battlefield, or in play rather, on the battlefield, with our Dread Return, Unearth, and Lively Dirge, the next best place for it is the graveyard. I mean, Lurrus is our companion, and we've built around that. So yeah, we can recast our guys. Hopefully you, I think I've pretty much said all the things to say. Maybe there's some single card discussions worth having. You get the idea. We've built around having super broken 1 card and 2 card combos that are too powerful and should be banned, except that they're super squishy. And then we found ways to protect their squishy asses, and if we can't protect their squishy asses, then we can bring them back into play. Building around Lurrus is, well, just the cards that we're playing are all permanent based win conditions, which automatically has you built around Lurrus. But also we're playing things like Dark Ritual, which honestly at $3 is not making all of my black and whatever other color budget competitive decks these days. $3 is a lot. Not every deck can put the black to the greatest use. It still makes most of my decks that have black mana, but here it's really, really good. It just is a very easy way to get that 6 mana that we require to get the Lurrus in our hand and then onto the battlefield. Another big way is with Culling Ritual. You can go into the late game and you've taken your shot once or twice even, but it's getting away from you. Maybe there's some Thrasios deck that's starting to put a bunch of things into the battlefield, and you have some pirate problem that's starting to brew, maybe a Magda situation. You have those there's an invasive species of dwarves that's been coming to North America. But Culling Ritual will make short work of any and all of those, and because Lurrus can be cast with either white mana or black mana, you can use all of the mana. Like, you'll usually, when you resolve a Culling Ritual, you're going to make like between 6 and 15 mana, has been my experience most of the time. It's very, very rarely not mana positive. So like say 5 to 15 mana, you'll be able to use 3 of the black mana to put 3 of any color of that mana to put the Lurrus in your hand, and then you can use just black, black, black to recast the Lurrus. So you can actually use nothing but Culling Ritual mana to cast, to put the Lurrus in your hand from the companion zone and put it into play. Yeah, that's now got to be all the things. But what happens if our Thassa's Oracle gets exiled? Like, guys, we can't play any backup plans, right? I mean, the whole fucking deck is a backup plan. Let's not, don't get it twisted. The deck is backup plan the deck. You know, it's like Hermit Druid is the card. The deck is the backup plan to Hermit Druid. Lurrus is a backup plan. Being able to cast and recast all of our guys over and over is a backup plan. Having other versions of this effect is a backup plan. But what do we do to back up Thassa's Oracle? Because what if somebody just hits our Thassa's Oracle with a Swords to Plowshares? Well, usually the trigger's already on the stack and it's too damn late and it doesn't matter. That's the real answer. But sometimes some guy is gonna be a wise ass and somehow, I guess, stifle. Well, maybe you try to do like a reverse Thoracle. Well, no, you don't have to do a reverse Thoracle. Okay, so here's the scenario. I cast Thassa's Oracle. I hold priority, and I crack the Sacred Guide. No, that wouldn't work. Yeah, usually this isn't going to be an issue. But on the slim chance that somebody has exiled, and it comes up, you know there's going to be some situation where your Thassa's Oracle will be exiled. Well, whatever do? We just need it in the deck. That's the important part. We don't need it in our hand. We just need it in the deck. So if it were to be exiled, we do have Rift Sweeper. It's only one answer, but I don't want to play a bunch of dead cards in the deck, and Rift Sweeper is largely a dead card. But it won't be a dead card in those cases where you don't have your Thassa's Oracle in your deck. If it gets exiled, you legitimately cannot win the game with this deck. So this is the only time I've ever put Rift Sweeper in a deck, because generally, like, why wouldn't you just use a backup win condition? But when you're playing Lurrus, and I think we should be playing Lurrus, like, this is a Lurrus deck more than it's a Minstrel deck. We need the Lurrus. And also that adds some extra power to Wild Canter. That's the other thing I was thinking of. You can crack it every turn. You know, just get a little extra mana. Every other turn, I guess you'd get extra mana. But there is no backup plan. Right, because we can't just jam like I don't know, what's a typical A plus B. We can't do any of the animate dead things. I mean, you could, but you can't use Leonin Relic Warder because that's a white card, and you can't use Hoarding Broodlord because that's a big card. So remember, we're capped at 2 CMC, so we can't even do like Dualcaster Mage Twin Flame. So we really don't have the option to have a true legitimate other secondary win outside of our Thassa's Oracle. Enter Rift Sweeper. So this is your, I mean, really, this isn't going to come up very often, but on the occasions when it does come up, having this one card in the entire deck that's going to unlock this entire situation for you, I think is probably worth it. Plus there's going to be side situations where you exile cards to Divining Witch. Maybe somehow Sacred Guide, it could come up. But let's say, well, I mean, maybe somebody just hits your Lurrus with a Swords to Plowshare and you really want your Lurrus back. So Rift Sweeper has some uses in the deck, but primarily it's here just in the rare occasion that Thassa's Oracle gets literally removed from the game. Outside of that, we don't need a backup plan. We really don't. I'm not just saying that to be like a zoomer. Is that even a thing? I'm not saying that to be bold, right? I'm saying that because we legitimately don't need a backup plan. Again, the deck is the backup plan. Where are we at? 40 minutes. Let's Goldfish. Let's Goldfish, kids. I hope we get some good ones. Now, this is not the fastest deck in the format. Not by a long shot. Where I think it gets like its relevancy is how once it starts winning the game, once it presents its first win, it just never stops. I mean, like legitimately, now it's usually going to take until turn 4 to present the first win. But we're loaded to the gills with Braid, Abrupt Decay, Offer, Autumn's Veil, Fatal Push. I hate this art, but Fatal Push. I don't hate the art. I like the art. I hate it as Fatal Push. Delay, Dispel. Dizzy Spell is a good one in here because it'll find your Aether Vial or it'll find your Sacred Guide. So, cool hot tech. Don't play the deck without the Dizzy Spell. Limdol's Vault is not interaction. Louise's Sacrifice. This is a great one. Louise's Sacrifice. You have a Minstrel, and once you're into the anything but early game, your Minstrel isn't doing that much for you. It's there to really be... I mean, you can like use it with Springleaf Drum. There's some sack effects. What do we use it for? We use it for basically it's there for the mana base. But we do have some other uses like Louis' Sacrifice, which says as an additional cast cost to the spell, sacrifice a legendary creature or pay 2 colorless. Well, we can sacrifice our commander by, we can pay 1 blue and counter target activated ability, triggered ability, or non-creature spell. So the card is really good if you have something to feed it. And we can easily feed it here, not just because our commander is expendable, but also because we have Lurrus. So we can sacrifice the commander, and if we're at that point in the game where we no longer need the Minstrel, maybe we're in the late game, we've got our Lurrus in play, we can just recast our commander on the next turn, if that's the best use of our mana. So we've got Mana Leak and Memory Lapse, Miscast, we've got Rapid Hybridization, Strict Serenade. We've got all this 1 and 2 mana interaction. Lightning Bolt. Also, love the art. Hate it for this card. Scour for Scrap. I didn't want to go too crazy with the... This is actually questionable. I felt like I didn't want to do too much in terms of specifically artifact tutors, but I do have some key artifacts. So, at 23 cents, 4 mana at instant speed, with the ability to choose one or both, search your library for an artifact card, put it in your hand, and or return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So if you've got an artifact in your graveyard that you'd like, say your Aether Vial is in the graveyard and your Swiftfoot Boots are in the deck, you can in-step cast this for 4 mana at instant speed and get them both. Get the one out of the graveyard and the one out of your library, or if you really just need the Swiftfoot Boots and it's in your deck, you can tutor for it. So I didn't go crazy with the artifact tutors, but we do have transmute cards, and our tutor suite is, I think I did a good job with the tutor suite. I did forget Limdol's Vault. Lucky somebody, I don't want to say the wrong person, Rizzo maybe, somebody in Discord. And if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. I'm going to leave a link in the description. We build wacky $100 budget competitive. I shouldn't say wacky. We build no bullshit. Like turn 2, 3, 4 proactive decks. Grindy as balls. Grindy control mid-range decks on a $100 budget. If you haven't seen any of these in action, I promise you're going to be surprised. I promise. So we've got a tutor suite that I didn't want to put too much into just finding artifacts. But we've got the transmute cards, Muddle the Mixture, Shred Memory, and Dizzy Spell. And these all play like double, triple, and quadruple duty. Shred Memory and Muddle the Mixture, while they're not artifact tutors, they will find Lightning Greaves. Dizzy Spell, while not an artifact tutor, will find Aether Vial. And then we've also got Scour for Scrap to just sort of hold it all together. It's like that last piece that feels like it's just enough. But Muddle the Mixture and Shred Memory, they find Lightning Greaves, they find all your things, they find everything. They find everything you could want to tutor. They'll grab your Thassa's Oracle if you've got the Tainted Pact. They'll grab your Tainted Pact if you've got the Thassa's Oracle. They'll grab your Hermit Druid. If you already have the Druid, they'll grab your Lightning Greaves to put on the Hermit Druid. You've got this A plus B combo in the deck. Don't sleep on this. This is big. Cephalid Illusionist plus Lightning Greaves does just win the game in this deck. It's going to be the same thing as it's exactly the same thing as a Hermit Druid activation. No different, except for it doesn't cost mana. just for if you've got the boots in play or the greaves in play, and you've got the Cephalid Illusionist, you can do the same exact thing as Hermit Druid. And your 2-mana transmute cards will find Cephalid, Divining Witch, Hermit Druid, Lightning Greaves, Thassa's Oracle, Tainted Pact, Fauna Shaman, which Fauna Shaman goes up in value also in this deck because you've got Lightning Greaves, because you have Aether Vial, because you have Lurrus in the Companion Zone. The deck is real, guys. I'm going to show you right now. Enough talking, let's do. Let's get to the getting. Oh shit, I wanted the one with the Dark Ritual and all that fancy stuff. It always seems like the first hand that I look at, like I don't actually get to keep it. It always seems like that, and it always seems like it's good. Like I always lose that first one, and I always want it. Go back and watch like the last 5 videos, please, and then subscribe. I never say that. Like and subscribe and get into the Discord and help us grow this format. It's time. Like we're almost there. We're right there at the precipice. We have pickup games forming. We're very nearly to the point where we could host an actual $100 budget competitive tournament. And this YouTube channel, I aim for it to be, I think it is, the largest codex of $100 budget competitive decks available anywhere, but particularly on the internet. If this had another land, maybe a dork, it would be real good. It's not, so we're going to go to a second 7. I want that first one that had the fucking, all the things. It had Mana Rant, well, it had Dark Ritual, it had, I don't remember it now, but it looked real good. Yeah, so this is definitely a keep. This is our second 7. Let's draw a card. Oh, shit. That sucks. So that's bad. It's not like the end of the world, but it is a bummer. It does mean we're not going to be able to just turbo out our Hermit Druid with our Nature's Claim and go to town. The Narcomoeba was a really, really bad hit. There's not many cards in the deck that are like that. Narcomoeba is just 1 in the 98. That if you draw, it kind of sucks. But, you know, because this is going to flip off the top for free and be our 3rd creature that we need to sacrifice in order to flash back Dread Return for free. But alas, it turned to be, not today. So we will play tap land, and we will name, so this is going to tap for red mana. When it ETBs, we choose a color. In this case, we're going to be choosing blue. And then we will go to our next turn. Well, you know what? Actually, let's not do that. I think a better play here is probably to go Brushland and exile. Oh, no, because then I can't exile this for blue mana. Well, that's unfortunate. So we'll go along with our plan A. Alright, now second turn. How do we want to do this? God, there's actually a lot of options. There's a lot of different ways we could go about this. Let's get this, and let's burn the ritual and tap this. So that's 2 mana floating, and let's go this, and then let's tap this for a colorless and play that, and go to a turn 3. So now we have to decide, are we, you know what I just realized? I don't have the bounce lands in the deck. This deck could really use some, this is a good skeleton, it's a good shell, it's not done, but it's done enough in my mind to have proven itself worthy. I've got a good proof of concept, but I should be playing the bounce lands. Those would be really, really good in this deck. And then if we're going to layer, we can layer in some other things. If we're going to play the bounce lands, we can layer in the island that when you play it, if it ETB's untapped, you get to put a card from your graveyard on top of your library. Okay, so we've got more work to do. Maybe we'll get a video part 2 on the channel at some point. So now the question is, are we going to play our commander out or not? Should we just eschew that plan entirely, or should we be developing our commander? Because if we're not going to do the commander, then we really don't have a need. Let's do that. Let's play the commander. I think it's worth it. It's like between that or starting to develop the Lurrus. And then, or we could just raw dog the Nature's Claim into a Druid, but, you know, then we don't have the fucking Narcomoeba in the deck, so that wasn't going to quite work. So now this guy comes into play untapped, and so also it'll tap with this, so it sort of was free. So we're going to tap this, and this, and this. Now we'll at least threaten, like we have Counterspell. We'll hold up 2 blue. So 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. We will cast our Nature's Rhythm. And that's a to the battlefield tutor for X. And we are going to get, what's the thing? It's Devoted Druid. Devoted Druid is, no, it's not Devoted Druid. Jesus, have I been saying that this entire fucking video? How embarrassing. I hope not. Hermit Druid. Alright, so we're going to tutor the Hermit Druid to play. We don't have our haste enablers, but we've got a lot of mana developed. So the question here really is, do we play our creature or do we fake interaction? That's a tough one. Because we can just play this next turn, but we don't know what we're going to draw, and we might want to use the transmute. Let's just run this out. Okay, and now we're going to pass the turn, and everybody and their mother knows that we're going to win the game on our next turn. So this is how the deck kind of plays. We're going to generally be running out a game ender situation on turn 3, but it's going to have to get back to us. Or we're going to be waiting to deploy a win on the spot starting turn 4. So if we assume that nobody murdered our guy on our turn, then we will tap a green mana, activate the Hermit Druid. We will flip our entire deck into the graveyard. Thassa's Oracle will be in there, and Dread Return will be in there. Is it called Dread Return? The fucking reanimation spell that we can flash back by sacrificing 3 creatures will be in there. And we will sacrifice 1, 2, 3 creatures to animate Thassa's Oracle into a world where we do not have any cards in our library, hence winning the game. And if anybody has anything to say about that, we do have a piece of interaction. So maybe we could have stopped the person from stopping us with our offer. More often than not, that will not be the case. Or at least a very high percent of the time. A reasonably high percent of the time, that will not be the case. This guy will have been murdered before it ever became our turn. Usually, right? I mean, hey, if not, then we just get to win. But this is where the grind starts to come in. We can tap, use our Minstrel for mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Put this guy in our hand and then put it on the battlefield. If you wanted to break that up into 2 turns, you could do that in order to hold up an offer you can't refuse. That's definitely a viable option. And then we go to our next turn where we have multiple ways to try to go again. We can regrow the Hermit Druid. Well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to recast the Hermit Druid with the Lurrus. And we're going to transmute the Shred Memory. So we'll go... Fuck, we don't have enough black mana, do we? Yeah, we do. Black, colorless. We will transmute for Lightning Greaves. To the hand. And we will throw the Greaves out, put the Greaves on the Lurrus, and then we'll have a much better shot at closing out next time. We're 1 mana short from being able to even cast now our Hermit Druid. We could have just raw dogged the Druid again, but I think it's time to grow the fuck up and act like responsible adults, going to our next turn. Yeah, and here's where the death punch is really going to come. This is where, like, we've got this now. If nobody has already won the game, this is going to be us winning the game. Our Lurrus is all booted up. We can cast our Hermit Druid out of the graveyard with our Lurrus. If I never explained Lurrus, he just lets you cast 1 permanent from your graveyard every turn. Busted, right? So a lot of times that's going to be Hermit Druid. So we recast our Hermit Druid. Now our Lightning Greaves are on the Lurrus, but we can move it over to the Hermit Druid, which will be that'll seal the deal. Now, if somebody has interaction, they're not just going to let us do that. But if they don't, this is their one moment. They have to do it before we equip this, because once we put the Greaves on, our Hermit Druid has no longer has Summoning Sickness, and we can just activate and win the game. But even if they, so it gets rid of the Summoning Sickness, and it also gets rid of the their ability to interact. So usually while we are moving the Greaves to the Hermit Druid, somebody will respond with some cockamamie idea like, I'm going to lightning bolt your Hermit Druid. And we will respond to that with an offer, and they will counterspell the offer. That's why we're leading with the offer, so they don't end up with 2 mana. And then we will dispel whatever their countermeasures were. And hell, even if that still gets stopped, and this is what I was talking about, how the deck, once it starts winning, it just doesn't stop winning. It just keeps going. Even if somehow our Lightning Greaves and our 2 pieces of removal or interaction protection were not enough, we can still just try again next turn. So I don't know what they would have done. Maybe they killed our guy again, or maybe they, God forbid, Swords to Plowshared our guy and then had enough counterspells to beat us on that front. Still no matter. We can use the... This thing is based. On our next turn, we can cast the Nature's Rhythm with Harmonize, and we can get our Divining Witch out and start trying to win the game that way. Let's look at another. That should give you the idea. And that's what most of these games look like. Just what you saw right there. This is a good one. We'll keep this. We've got a To the Battlefield tutor that can also be a regurgitating effect. We've got decent mana. We've got some ramp. We've got a Mishra's Bauble, a little value engine piece for our Lurrus. Yeah, this is probably sufficient. So we will draw for turn. Oh, that's real. That's gas. That is good. We don't have a black tapping thing, but we do have Arcane Signet, which is better than you might have thought, but not as good as it seems after you have the first thought and then the second thought that makes you think, oh, this is real good. It's like pretty good. So we put our Bauble out. We still can't actually cast the Arcane Signet on turn 1, which kind of sucks. So now we have to make the decision, do we want to play an untapped land or a tapped land? I think on turn 1 you just play the tap land. And then we go to a second turn. Oh, we don't want that. We want this. And you can either play your commander out or you can play the Signet. I think I'd rather do the Signet, because with the Signet, now we can go into sort of a control-y mode where we've got 1 blue mana for an offer. So if somebody tries to do some sort of a non-creature combo, we've got offer. And if somebody tries to win with like Magda or Ral, we've got a removal piece for that. Even if somebody tries to win with something bigger than that, like a Malcolm or some kind of 4 mana thing, we can sacrifice our Mishra's Bauble to turn on the Fatal Push, and then we can cast the Fatal Push for its, what is it, morbid cost? I think that's how it works. So we can turn this on if we need to for a 4 mana removal spell. So whether we crack the Bauble or not, just in general right now, or if we wait in case we need to crack the Bauble for Fatal Push, I think really just depends on our opponent's decks. But if we know that they're all playing like Kinnan and Magda and some other 2-drop, then we can probably just crack the Bauble, do the little nothing thing that the Bauble allows us to do, and then on the next, at the beginning of the next player's turn, we'll draw for the Bauble, and we'll go to a turn, our next turn. All right, and now let's go 2 or 3 other lands. Concealed Courtyard. Yeah, so this might be us going into like a more control-y route, like where we do develop our Lurrus early, and then use the either Spell Bomb every turn to bounce things or draw cards, or we use the Mishra's Bauble to draw cards every turn with Lurrus for free. But I'm more inclined right now just to go 1, 2, 3, 4 for a Lively Dirge. Oh, I'm sorry, that's 5 mana. Lively Dirge costs 5 total. So 1, 2. So let's do the commander first. Player commander. No, we can't do both. We can't do both. Okay, so we've got access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. This is going to be 5. And then I guess we'll just get our... We'll just hold up mana. So we can either do our Spell Bomb or we can hold up an Offer. And you really... Well, we can hold up Offer and we can hold up the Fatal Push. I think in most situations it would be beneficial. Although it doesn't Goldfish is nice. The more beneficial thing in most pods is going to be to hold up the 2 types of interaction. You know, we've got for 1 mana being held up instead of developing our Spell Bomb, we have a piece of creature removal and a piece of non-creature interaction. So that should make you feel pretty good. You know, it's pretty hard to lose the game on turn 3 when you can counter a non-creature spell or murder any creature, almost any creature, most of the relevant ones. All right, so we Dark Ritual, and we're gonna Lively Dirge, and I kind of was planning and hoping to show some other looks, but I don't really see a reason to do that in this situation. I think it's just gonna be Hermit Druid. So we find our Druid, and that is a right directly into play scenario. And we will go to our next turn and we will untap and win the game. So this is a tap land, but we have another untapped mana source. So do we play... We have to play our commander. We do need the commander. Alright, so we will go here and here. Run out the commander. And then we'll play this land. And since our commander's in play, this will come in untapped. Which will allow us to hold up the Fatal Push and an Offer you can't refuse. Another thing we could do is if we had a slightly different situation, we could cast the either Spell Bomb and cast the Offer to fix our mana, or if we've got a Bauble, we can cast the Bauble, offer it, and have like a little ritual. But here we are just going to turn 4, activate Hermit Druid, and threaten a win. So the deck is very often threatening a win on turn 4. That's kind of the general cadence of the deck. And sometimes you just have like a turn 2 Hermit Druid. Sometimes you have turn 1 Hermit Druid, followed by turn 2 Commander and win. But most of the time, Like our average is like first win attempt is turn 4. Now that's not a fast deck, but you can also see we're holding up all kinds of interaction. We've got like 20, we've got like 27 instants, but probably like 18, 19, 20 pieces of interaction in our little 4-color suite, sans white suite. So here we're gonna do our first win attempt, and again, if you're not following along with that, like how this is gonna win, maybe I should go through it. It's kind of a pain in the ass to go through, but we would activate the Hermit Druid, and it says reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a basic land card. Put that card in your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Well, we don't have that card, so we're just gonna flip all of these things one by one until we hit the Narcomoeba, and that's gonna come into play because that's just what the text says on the card. And then we're going to flip the rest of these cards, and we're never going to hit that basic land because there are no basic lands in the deck. So all of these cards are going to go into the graveyard. Oh, I see. It thinks I just wanted to put the top card into the graveyard. No, I want to move the entire thing into the graveyard. It's not going to let us do that. Well, okay, so just all of these cards are in the graveyard. This would be actually a lot easier in paper. But just know that all these cards are in the graveyard. The graveyard's in the graveyard and the library's in the graveyard, so we have no cards in our library. But we do have 2 very key cards. Thassa's Oracle and now I legit can't remember what that fucking card is called. I can never remember it. It's like a hole in my brain. I wonder if it's just me, or do you guys have certain cards that you just can never remember? Dread Return. Neoform used to be one of those for me. I had to do a whole thing where I think about Neo from The Matrix whenever I get lost on the name of the card. Maybe I should do that for Dread Return, but not on your time. I'll do it on my time. Okay, so Dread Return and Thassa's Oracle are both in our graveyard because our entire deck is now in our graveyard. Dread Return says, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it has flashback, meaning we can cast it from the graveyard, of sacrificing 3 creatures. Well, when we activate the Hermit Druid, we are going to flip the Narcomoeba into play. And that's going to mean that as long as we've got a Dork or our commander, we've got 1, 2, 3 creatures that we can sacrifice in order to cast Dread Return. When we cast the Dread Return, we will use it to reanimate Thassa's Oracle, and Thassa's Oracle will come into play, and its ETB will go on the stack. And even if somebody tries to do something about it, we've got a mana up for protection. If they try to kill the Thassa's Oracle, it doesn't matter. The ETB is on the stack, and the ETB is to see if you have any cards or how many cards you have in your library. In fact, in this exact situation, we don't have any blue pips outside of Thassa's Oracle. So actually, if somebody did bounce our Thassa's Oracle, when the ETB resolves, we would not have any devotion to blue, and it would actually matter. Most of the time, it doesn't matter. And even in this situation, it probably won't matter because we're just going to counterspell whatever their thing is anyway. That's the deck, guys. That's what we're doing. You kind of got to see me do the Lurrus thing. You got to see me do the normaler thing. And then just the deeper and deeper you get into the game, you start doing Lurrus with an Aether Spellbomb, where we can bounce a thing every turn, or we can draw a card with it every turn. Or maybe you get Nihil Spellbomb, and with enough, with 2 mana, is that right? 2 mana? Let's look at the Spellbomb. Nope, just 1 mana. So you can tap. So if you've got your Nihil Spellbomb, you can tap it, sacrifice it, exile all cards from target player's graveyard. So you've got that Protean Hulk player, or you've got that Underworld Breach player, or that whatever graveyard deck, you can wipe out their deck, their graveyard, which really could be wiping out their deck, and you pay 1 black mana and you draw a card. And then you can recast it for 1 colorless. And so for 2 mana every turn with Lurrus, you get to wipe out somebody's graveyard, which is almost always relevant, and draw a card. So yeah, Lurrus, well, aside from that, probably if you're late in the game, you have already tried to put a win on the stack, and that win will have involved either one of your Druid, Hermit Druid, or your Sacred Guide, or you were trying to win with Divining Witch or Cephalid Illusionist, one of your Hermit Druids, and or Thassa's Oracle. And so your Lurrus can recast your Thassa's Oracle from the graveyard, and you can Tainted Pact. Or if you have one of your guys in your hand, like your, I don't know, your Divine, your, let's say the Sacred Guide's in your hand, and the Thassa's Oracle is in your graveyard. It got counterspelled. You got your Lurrus out, you cast your Sacred Guide, and then you use your Lurrus cast per turn to cast your Thassa's Oracle, and then you win the game. So once the deck gets up and going, which isn't slow, it like puts the nasty thing that needs to be dealt with out like turn 3, and it threatens to win the game on turn 4, pretty usually. But then after that, it just keeps going and going. You just like can't. It's really hard to just stop it. That's the deck tech, guys. I hope it was an interesting. If nothing else, I bet that was a learning experience. If you had no interest in Hermit Druid decks before, maybe now you've learned a new way that you can game in this format, in this space. And I bet you've never seen a 5-color, 4-color Wandering Minstrel, but not really, sort of a Lurrus-y Hermit Druid deck ever at $100. Until next time, word to your mothers, word to your brothers, word to your brothers' mothers that aren't your mothers, which would put you in one of these weird situations that I don't even want to talk about because it makes me feel uncomfortable. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Peace be with you and also with you. Not so much you. You're a bit of a dick. You know who you are. And namaste, nerds.